Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us by the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us live on Love 101 FM YouTube and Facebook Live. In both watches today, more concerns about NIDS. For our Facebook question, we ask, do you have any new or remaining concerns about NIDS? Share your responses on our Facebook page, Love 101 FM, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your response later on in the program, but first, here's our quote.
This morning's I quote, beware of the half-truth. You may have gotten hold of the wrong half.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. The main watch will be back after this break.
You are the buzz, 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 buzz. You are the zing, 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 zing. You are the You are the click, click, click. You are the pop, pop, pop. You are the I in Jamaica. So keep fizzing for the love of it. Pepsi. Hey babe, so about that date we planned?
Remember bro G said no movement, you know?
Yeah, but what if we set up a video call on BIP and binge movies together on Playgo instead?
Yeah man, especially cause BIP video call no flow slow.
I know, right? Plus, we can add up to 8 people on the video call.
Even was like a virtual party. Hey, my music playlist well hot enough. Beat Lockdown Blues with Digicel lifestyle apps and dedicated data from your Digicel Prime bundle. Download and activate in the My Digicel app today. Digicel, better together.
Tropical race 4 disease, TR4, is a soil-borne disease that has the potential to wipe out the Jamaican banana and plantain crops. Farmers and visitors must disinfect shoes and tools before entering farms daily. If your banana or plantain crops seem to be wilting, call the Banana Board at 876-922-5490 or 876-922-4327. Jamaica Banana Board, Green Gold, Life Health and the Environment.
Become the hero on the scene by taking the COVID vaccine. Get vaccinated as soon as you get all the facts. Don't listen to the rumors. This vaccine might just make it possible for teachers to sit face to face with schoolers. This vaccine make it safer for everybody, from the young to the elderly. Don't you want to go back to living normally when things were more orderly? And if you want to live a long good life, then we all have to do what's right. So let's get vaccinated along with the heroes on the front line.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Hey, psst, come closer. I want to tell you my secret. My son wears his favorite shirt for everything, and no matter how much he runs, jumps, and plays, it always looks like new and smells really good. My secret? I use Suavitel Superior Care. Keeps my family's clothes as good as new. Suavitel, as soft as a mother's love.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. Recently, the matter of the National Identification and Registration System, otherwise known as NIDS, has come back into sharp focus. As many listeners would recall, the previous law was struck down by the Supreme Court, and there is a new draft bill, which is before a joint select committee. So there's a bill now before the draft select committee, and a number of groups have made comments at the draft select committee stage, and among those groups is the Love March movement. We have this morning to share the relevant thoughts and concerns of this particular group. Dr. Daniel Thomas, who's the president of the Love March movement, and we also have Francesca Tavares. She's an attorney at law and vice president of the said Love March movement. We also have online this morning to give us a perspective from an information technology angle, Mr. Tyrone Edwards, who's an IT specialist. Good morning, Dr. Thomas.
Morning.
Edwards. Are we hearing all of you?
Yes, good morning.
Mr. Barrett.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I'm hearing you. It's a bit far away, but I'm hearing a little bit. Dr. Thomas?
Yes, morning, Stokely.
Great. And Mr. Edwards?
Good morning, Mr. Marshall. And good morning to everybody else.
Now, jumping right into it. Mr. Varez, I watched your entire presentation. The entire presentation of the Love March movement. It's online, and Mr. Varez, you were presenting for perhaps an hour, even a little bit more than that. And one of the things you indicated about NIDS is that it will not stop identity fraud. At least that is your position. And this is in relation to the bill before Parliament at this time. Why do you say that, Mr. Varez? Mr. Varez?
All right, thanks for that. Yes. Thanks for watching our presentation as well. It's available, I believe, on PBCJ.
Yes, PBCJ.
Right. So as the comment that NIDS will not stop identity fraud, that's the experience of the Indian experience following the passage of their Aadhaar Act. The submission was that fraud, there's no demonstrable proof that fraud or corruption will be significantly affected by the implementation of NIDS. And in fact, as was observed in the Puttaswamy case, that's the decision in India, their Indian Supreme Court, which found aspects of the Aadhaar Act unconstitutional as well. When their government was making the case for Aadhaar being a solution to all their crime problems, and that would be utilized to address money laundering, etc. Concerns were raised by the court regarding function creep, and also they dismissed the assertion that the Aadhaar system could be utilized in any way to address financial crime. They said that there was actually no study done which would demonstrate this. And in fact, it would have been disproportionate to link bank accounts to, in effect, presume the criminality of ordinary citizens, right? So the efforts of the government to do that would have been disproportionate. And also, following the passage of the Act, the Aadhaar Act in Indian experience, they found that identity frauds didn't stop. In fact, they continued under the Aadhaar system, right? So there's been something like 167 Aadhaar-related frauds, has not stopped, and in fact doesn't seem to have been reduced in any way. So no, fraud and corruption will not stop. What was highlighted as well is that there's been no study that we have seen that has shown how NIDS would address crime, or how it would address fraud specifically. Looking at the instances of fraud that exist in Jamaica, what are the specific types of fraud that we're grappling with, and how would NIDS specifically serve to reduce fraud? There's been nothing like that presented by the government as far as we've seen. And in looking at the experience of other jurisdictions, we're seeing where reduction in the instance of crime, fraud, corruption that hasn't been forthcoming as a result of the implementation of a national identification system.
And for the benefit of the listeners, I just want to point out Aadhaar, just taking a look at Wikipedia here online. Aadhaar is a 12-digit unique identity number that can be obtained voluntarily by residents or passport holders of India based on their biometric and demographic data, and it continues. Just for the benefit of the listeners so they can know what you were referring to, Mr. Vares, when you spoke about Aadhaar. Now, Mr. Edwards, we just heard a very powerful statement by Mr. Vares that if we were to have a NIDS, it would not necessarily stop fraud. In fact, the language that you used when I watched the PPCJ presentation, Mr. Vares, was even stronger. I think you actually said that NIDS will facilitate fraud. Mr. Edwards, do you have any comments in relation to NIDS being able to stop fraud, including identity fraud? Because one of the purposes of the NIDS, it would appear, is that it is intended to be a unique identifier, and to the extent that it will be, or that will facilitate a unique identifier for each citizen of Jamaica or each person ordinarily resident here. And in the circumstances, shouldn't that prevent or stop fraud, Mr. Edwards?
All right, good morning again. And for that question, there is no absolute solution that will allow the total prevention of fraud. Okay. There is no system that is so secure that it is going to stop any attempt at committing fraud, because these systems are all man-made systems. And won't a NID significantly reduce the possibility? So that's why you have to be careful about the terms that you use when you say what is the potential benefit that a system is going to provide. And in this case, it is going to be an electronic system that manages the identification details for an individual. Yes, it can lead to a reduction in the fraudulent attempts at, say, identity theft, etc. But it is not going to be the one solution that is going to prevent it from happening. But it will be.
Before we go to the break, were you finished, Mr. Edwards?
I wasn't. But it will allow for control and monitoring.
Increased control and monitoring. Dr. Thomas, before we head to the break, any comments you want to make before we head to the break?
Just to add to this part of the discourse, the World Economic Forum noted that the biggest data breach in 2019 was actually Aadhaar, with 1.1 billion citizens' information being available on the black market for 500 rupees to be viewed for 10 minutes. So part of the risk with NIDS is that the level of centralization of the information, if there's one breach, everyone's information could just be available on the black market. That is where the fraud would now proliferate, if you get where I'm going with this.
Jamaica Banana Board, Green Gold, Life Health, and the Environment. The time brought to you by the Jamaica Banana Board is
7:15 and a half on the Sound of Love.
JN Money Card. Send the money. More withdraw in a hurry. JN Money Card free. With your TRN and your ID. And when me no walk with cash, me just swipe like that. From abroad to card. Get the JN Money Card. It's safe, convenient, and free. JN Money Card sent from abroad. JN Money Card.
Available at JN Money locations across Jamaica. Conditions apply.
Jamaica. Our way of life is being affected, but our path to progress is not.
Flow has continued to build its network infrastructure to prepare for times like these, to ensure that your connections to everything important are strong and reliable. And if you are a current Flow Home Service customer, upgraded services may be available in your area. Learning from home is smarter, and working from home is stronger than ever. I am Stephen Price, Country Manager of Flow, and this is our commitment. The strength of the Flow network is yours and ready when you need it. Visit your nearest Flow store or discoverflow.co. It is our privilege to serve you.
Get on the path to financial freedom. Be your own boss with City and Guilds and Distinction College certification at Distinction College. Start full-time, part-time, and weekend classes in plumbing, air conditioning, and refrigeration, motor vehicle repairs, and electrical installation. No subjects required, no age limit, no entrance test. Register this week and get free courses at huge discounts. Licensed employment agencies will assist students with job opportunities overseas. Visit us in Kingston, Spanish Town, and Ocho Rios, or call 876-356-4167. Distinction College, the school of champions.
There are a million reasons to want to own a home.
I want more space for the children.
I am tired of paying rent.
My wife and I want an investment.
Go from future plans to keys in hand with an NCB mortgage. Get rates as low as 6.95%, 100% financing, and up to 40 years to repay. Plus, get the life insurance and home insurance you need all in one place. Visit myhome.jncb.com to get started. Conditions apply.
You are the buzz, 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 buzz. You are the zing, 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 zing. You are the you are the click, click, click. You are the pop, pop, pop. You are the I in Jamaica. So keep fizzing for the love of it. Pepsi.
You know how Jamaican people do everything extra, right? So why should planning your retirement be any different? Introducing JNGI Silver Shield. 2-in-1 coverage for motor vehicle and home including contents. See? Extra! Imagine 25% JN member discount, emergency roadside assistance, accident forgiveness up to $1 million and more. JNGI Silver Shield. Exclusively for members of the Caribbean community of retired persons. Visit jngi.com. JNGI. We'll help you find a way. A member of the JN Group.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. We're having a discussion this morning with Dr. Daniel Thomas, President of the Love March Movement here in Jamaica, as well as Francesca Tavares, Attorney at Law, Vice President of the Love March Movement, and Mr. Tyrone Edwards, an Information Technology Specialist. And in both watches today, we're looking at more concerns about NIDS. And Dr. Thomas, just before the break, where you, unfortunately, we had to interrupt you to go to the break. I would like you to return to the point we're making about the World Economic Forum in relation to Aadhaar in terms of the system used in India. So please remind us of what you were saying and elaborate there to Dr. Thomas. And we apologize that we had to break you.
Yeah, man. No problem. So the World Economic Forum is one organization that tracks data breaches globally. And in the year 2019, they noted that it was the largest data breach in the history, in modern history, as far as we know, which was the breach of Aadhaar, which is essentially India's NIDS system. Okay, Aadhaar had at that time 1.1 billion citizens. Their information was stolen and available on the black market for 500 rupees. I'm not sure what the equivalent in Jamaican dollars, but it really doesn't sound like that much. 500 rupees, and that is only to view it for 10 minutes. So, you know, there's a lot of discussion regarding NIDS, and, you know, the government has been touting that it would decrease fraud, that it would, you know, you would have your own authentic identity that would be completely verifiable, etc. But what we're seeing in the practical workings in countries that have already gone that way is that it has actually presented a risk, and persons' information is certainly available on the black market, which is of great concern. You know, the centralization as I highlighted in the parliamentary presentation, the centralized storage of all our information is one of the biggest risks presented by NIDS because it can be easily breached by one successful hack. That's also
I can interrupt you for a minute though, right?
Mr. Edwards, go ahead.
Yes. What is being highlighted right now is the fact that the breach for Aadhaar was a deliberate attack by the hackers to prove that the system is not a complete solution for preventing any form of identity theft.
Yeah.
So as Dr. Thomas has pointed out, because this data is available and in a repository, once you are able to access that repository, there is the chance that you will be able to get the data. But based on how the data can be stored, even if you do access a repository, if the storage of the data is done in such a way that it is not residing in one specific location, then that is an additional form of buffer or protection against having the data exposed. But
in other words, if we were to have a NIDS in Jamaica, perhaps it might be better to decentralize the storage of the data, not keep it all in one place, because if you decentralize it, it's a little bit more difficult to hack in to get everything because all the information is not stored in one location. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Edwards?
That is correct, because when you think about even your credit card issuers, the data for a credit card company was actually breached, but because the data was not centrally stored, the attacker was only able to get a portion of the credit card data, which proved to be useless to the person that committed the data breach. But the fact is that there was a data breach. But there are different levels of the system and security that can be implemented that will seek to prevent wholesale access to the data. So it's not that we're saying the system is going to be 100% safe. It's not. And it could take even a small number, a small team to access that data just to prove that, yes, the data can be accessed and it's not going to be a 100% this shining star in the sky solution for identity fraud. And so all of that information needs to be available to the public. And I believe that with forums such as this, that brings it to the public, it now allows us to be able to step back and then see the picture that, yes, it will allow for identifying individuals, but there is a risk. As it is now, it is being presented as if there is nothing to worry about.
I see the concern you're having here. So, Mr. Barrett, you're coming in there?
I would like to. We're moving on to the point of data breaching, that the issue of security risks. That's another point that we made, but the issue of it not stopping fraud or corruption is separate. All right. So the rationale underlying the law is that biometric data cannot be forged or gamed, and therefore it would be more secure than other existing forms of identification. What I'm saying is that the experience in India reveals that identity frauds are still possible under digital identity systems and have not necessarily reduced. What I said is that NIDS won't will not stop fraud or corruption. It may facilitate it, however. So since 2011 till 2019, 164 Aadhaar-related frauds were reported in India. This is not a data breach. These are frauds, including through the use of fake Aadhaar cards. For example, forging existing cards by replacing the image on someone else's Aadhaar card or using fake details to generate new cards. There have also been reported instances of the same person having more than one Aadhaar card. And so in view of the Indian experience, we recommended that the limitation of NIDS be considered. We also submitted that we hadn't seen any study or other data published by the Jamaican government regarding the scale of identity fraud in total and in relation to other types of fraud, and explaining how NIDS specifically would help to reduce the instances of such fraud. In India, researchers documented 3 types of fraud in India's welfare system. And they found that digital identities such as Aadhaar could only assist in mitigating the fraud in one type of case. So there are more than one types of fraud, right? And it's important that that a study is conducted to see what exactly are the types of frauds that exist in our space, and how would NIDS be able to address it? How would NIDS really be able to mitigate much? NIDS at best could only help in reducing identity fraud, since the NIC and NIN can authenticate that identity of an individual, but it cannot ascertain whether a person is entitled to, for instance, social welfare benefits, or if they have received the full quantum of the benefit. And as I mentioned before, the Indian Supreme Court struck down the government's mandatory measure of linking Aadhaar to bank accounts in order to reduce financial fraud, on the ground that there was no proof that Aadhaar as a biometric identity could actually reduce financial crime or money laundering. So there are more than one types of frauds, and there are many things that NIDS is being promoted as being capable of doing. We're saying that there hasn't been much proof presented that NIDS will actually be able to do what it's being promoted as being able to do. And financial crime is one such thing. Yes.
So to prove it can do the things it is being promoted that it can do, that really you ought not properly to make those claims. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Barrett?
There is that, making the claims, and also looking at the Indian experience, we're seeing where their experience would seek to negate the claims in at first instance. So no corruption is reduced.
Well, I'm interjecting here, Mr. Vargas, but sometimes they may not necessarily have a study, but the persons who develop the system may have indicated to you, or I'm not saying this is what happened, but maybe the persons who are presenting the system could have, I don't know, maybe they indicated that these are some of the things that NIDS can do. What would be wrong in terms of, indicating what you believe it can do, even if you don't necessarily have a detailed study on it?
Right. So the Indian experience has shown that NIDS does not necessarily reduce identity frauds. Identity frauds have continued under the Aadhaar system, right? Also,
another break, Mr. Vargas, Dr. Thomas, as well as Mr. Edwards. Never enough time on the morning watch, but I'll try to squeeze one more in before we head to the break. Mr. Vargas, I know you'll develop this later on in the second half, but you indicated that you think Jamaica should follow the UK model instead of us having a NIDS. I would like for you, before when we're heading into the next segment, to tell us what this UK model is and why you think it is the preferred one. We're upon a break here at in the morning watch. We'll be right back.
JN Bank Live Online Banking is your quick and easy banking that's safe and secure. Sign up today. Visit jnbank.com. JN Bank will help you find a way. The time is
7:30.
I'm looking for a new pizza joint with that perfect crust. My car needs a bit of a tune-up, and my pregnant wife needs something from the pharmacy. So I turned to the printed yellow directory, and in an instant, the pizzas are ordered, the oil change is booked, and the thing that I'm not allowed to say out loud has been purchased for my wife. Problem solved. When you need something quick, do yourself a favor. Flip through the printed yellow directory. Stop searching, start finding. Yellow, we know local.
OnlyFlow gives you everything you want in every plan. Unlimited local calls and texts, plus unlimited data for the apps you really want, like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and WhatsApp. No other network comes close. Flow has plans from 2 to 30 days, and every plan has everything you want. Dial *129 *6 numbers and to activate your 7-day plan with everything you want for only $675. Conditions apply.
You are the buzz, 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 buzz. You are the zing, 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 zing. You are the. You are the click, 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 click. You are the pop, pop, pop. You are the I in Jamaica. So keep fizzing for the love of it. Pepsi.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marsh. Let's take a look at the newspapers, see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And in the major daily newspapers this morning and other happenings, we have here, first of all, online in the Jamaica Observer, a very concerning story here, quite unfortunate. Highway carnage. And this is in relation to a very recent accident which took place on Highway 2000. And there's reference to a Damien Clark who fought hard to avoid crying yesterday at the Spanish Town Hospital in St. Catherine as he wondered in relation to, wondered whether his wife, Cornelia, was among passengers of a particular vehicle. We have another story here also of great concern in the neighboring island of St. Vincent. Huge explosion rocks St. Vincent as volcano keeps erupting. And we now turn to the Gleaner. There's also reference to that accident on Highway 2000. In addition, another story of some concern, St. Andrew father detained in connection with shooting death of son. And also a very interesting story here. Jamaican farmer says, volcano worse than hurricane. Volcano worse than hurricanes. Coming up next, we'll read for you some of the feedback from our Facebook and WhatsApp question, which is, do you have any new or remaining concerns about NIDS? If you haven't done so yet, leave a comment on our Facebook page, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man. I am a man.
Man and man, does your partner restrict you from using your own money? And when you do, they want you to feel bad about it? Does your partner open credit cards accounts in your name and you have no knowledge about it? Does your partner request that you should meet all her financial obligations, or does she speak down to you because of your job choice or career? Well, it sounds like the man them are being financially abused. And the only way to find out what that is, what it looks like, and how to overcome it is simply by not missing the mailbox this Wednesday, April 14 at 5:30 p.m. inside the program Designed for Men, as we take a look at the financially abused man.
That's the mailbox, the program Designed for Men, with hosts who are men and with guests who are men. It happens this and every Wednesday with yours truly, Courtney Morrison and Kevin Daly, here on Love 101, the family station, Monday.
Have some issues and concerns in your community that you wish could be attended to now? Want a platform to voice those concerns? This could be the place for you. Send your 30-second voice notes describing your issue to 876-997-3125. That's 876-997-3125. Be sure to type a voice for hope before sending the voice note. Then listen on Tuesday at 9:45 a.m. for a voice for hope. Share the concerns you have seen. know that street light that has not been working for a long time, or your community has not had water for 2 weeks now? Yes, here is somewhere you can share it. And maybe, just maybe, we can get some love on your situation. Remember now, send a 30-second voice note describing your issue and type a voice for hope before sending your voice note to 876-997-3125. A voice for hope. It's a problem, and we need a solution now. Love 101 FM, the family station, bringing a voice to your situation.
Here is a reminder from Love 101, the family station. As we face this COVID-19 pandemic, be kind and support loved ones during this time. Check in regularly on others, especially those who are affected. Encourage them to keep doing what they enjoy. Share accurate COVID-related information with them to manage anxiety. I am Jonathan Fletcher from Love 101, reminding you to protect yourself while protecting others. Stay safe and keep it locked on Love 101, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. We're now in the second watch, and both watches today is in relation to NIDS. And we're looking at whether there are any more concerns concerning NIDS. The National Identification Registration System, well, at this time it's a bill. The previous law had been struck down by the Supreme Court. It is now a draft bill, a bill before the Joint Select Committee of Parliament. The guests from the first segment into this segment, Dr. Daniel Thomas, President, Love March Movement; Francesca Tavares, Attorney at Law and Vice President of the Love March Movement; and Tyrone Edwards, Information Technology Specialist. Now, Mr. Tavares, just before the break, I had indicated to you that we would like to look at why is it that you indicated that the UK model, instead of us having a NIDS, is the preferred way to go. What is this UK model, and why do you think it is the preferred model to a NIDS if we were to implement such a system?
All right, thanks for the question. So the submission to Parliament indicated, or asked the question, are there alternatives to NIDS? And we submitted that yes, there are alternatives, and these alternatives should be considered. In the UK experience, in the 2000s, the UK government developed a national identity register with associated national identity cards, and the scheme used a unique identifier backed by biometrics. Authentication was backed by biometrics. It was later abandoned because of the lack of an underlying framework and legal norms for identity, and importantly, the distrust by the citizens of any government that attempts to organize the collection and use of this kind of information. Instead, the more modest gov.uk Verify scheme was introduced, which was limited specifically to the management of online identity and transactions. It outsourced the verification of identity, giving citizens the choice of several private organizations with which to register. Now, this may not be a one-size-fits-all solution. We're not suggesting that the government go to the UK and then copy and paste and implement it in the Jamaican situation, which we think maybe is what possibly maybe presently being done. Looking at the Estonian model and implementing something similar here, we're suggesting that in the UK experience, the government responded to the legitimate concerns of their people by presenting an alternative that fit the risk appetite of their citizens. Yes, they said, okay, our citizens don't want NIDS, they're not comfortable with the government collecting this amount of identification information. Let us see how we can exploit the digital economy whilst maintaining the privacy interest of our people. Can we avoid the NIDS situation altogether? And they did. They came up with a creative solution that allowed for engagement in the online e-commerce space without the creation of a centralized NIDS database, right? And we're submitting that just as the UK was able and is currently still going through the process of creating different pilot projects to finesse and make their system better. Not that they're going back to NIDS, but they're looking to make things more user friendly, right? Now we're suggesting that our government also can reach out to our very brilliant population and come up with a solution that best fits our needs.
You mean just our own information technology?
Right. Just as how there was I think a tender was thrown out in order to create the
parliament
building. There you go. And various persons were able to submit their designs, and one was selected. I think that similarly, we have creative software developers that can present ingenious solutions to this situation, which will not involve the legal and privacy risks associated with the NIDS system. We don't think that the government should dismiss their citizens' concerns as being conspiracy theories or anti-progress. We found in the UK experience where they were able to exploit the digital economy without going the route of the NIDS system, and they responded to the concerns of the people.
Yes. So, and even as it is currently, we are still able to. I am a
member of the Lawyers Christian Fellowship, which had taken a position in relation to the previous NIDS, and that position was one that was not in favor of much of what had then constituted NIDS. So I just want to make that very clear for those listening, because I do have a personal position on the matter, which I will not express on the program, but I'm asking the questions of my guests today. One of you were coming in, was it Dr. Thomas or Mr. Edwards?
It was me, Edwards.
Beg your pardon?
It was Tyrone.
Oh, Mr. Edwards, go ahead.
Yes. So the issue is not that there isn't a need for these types of systems that facilitate identification and facilitate the free flow of economic activities. But the concern has been and still remains to be the issue of privacy and access to the information, the data that is going to be captured. That is what continues to remain the issue. Even now, we are still able to participate in a digital economy. And the concerns from all sides are relevant, but we must listen to the concerns of the people, the citizens who are going to be the ones who will be affected directly by the system. It would just take, let's say, one concerted effort to demonstrate that we would be able to take on the identity of a Jamaican Prime Minister, to show that here is a scenario in which we're able to obtain this data, and then that concern may reach home for those persons that may not be thinking about that particular case. But I'm not hearing that we shouldn't have these types of systems in place, but it is really how much data do we need to provide in these systems to facilitate the types of exchanges that are being required.
I'm going to ask you to pause one moment there. We're upon another break in the Morning Watch. Be right back on Morning Watch.
The time by the Ministry of Health, Healthy People, Healthy Environment is
7:45.
Bills to pay and funds to transfer? No problem. I do it all on my time with JN Bank Live Online Banking. It's my simple and secure as that online banking.
Phone credit need a top up? No problem. I do it with JN Bank Live Online Banking.
It's quick and easy with just a few clicks. JN Bank Live, online banking that goes where you go. Sign up today. Visit jnbank.com. JN Bank will help you find a way.
You are the buzz, 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 buzz. You are the zing, 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 zing. You are the you are the click, click, click. You are the pop, pop, pop. You are the I in Jamaica. So keep fizzing for the love of it. Pepsi.
How many years we had do this and never yet fail, yo? You me bun gonna lead. You get this bun one time, you gon' come back for more. Trust me, that bun is sweet. When you say yummy, you say bun. Everybody wants some. So when yummy bun, me say it at the best, yes. Yummy, you say bun. Everybody wants some. Yummy bun, everybody wants some.
When it comes to Easter bun, Yummy Bun has been the #1 choice for years. Undoubtedly the best in value and taste. Bite after bite.
Everybody wants some.
Only Flow gives you everything you want in every plan. Unlimited local calls and texts, plus unlimited data for the apps you really want, like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and WhatsApp. No other network comes close. Flow has plans from 2 to 30 days, and every plan has everything you want. Dial *129 *6 number sign to activate your 7-day plan with everything you want for only $675. Conditions apply.
Me can tell you about Shorty. Short-term motor insurance from JNGI. Shorty. You choose what you need. 30, 60, 90 days policy. No long commitment, full third party. Don't park your car, don't walk, get a shorty. So affordable and it's not Coronation Market. JNGI Shorty. Country party, we have a shorty. Just insure your vehicle and start it. Roll out with a shorty. Shorty, the short-term motor insurance from JN General Insurance. Available only online.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. We are looking at more concerns about NIDS, and our guests are Dr. Daniel Thomas, President, Love March Movement, Francesca Tavares, Attorney at Law and Vice President, Love March Movement. I should hasten to mention that Dr. Daniel Thomas is a medical doctor. And also we have Mr. Tyrone Edwards, Information Technology Specialist. Now, we had to cut to go to the break while Mr. Edwards was making some interesting points and other persons were contributing. However, before we wrap today, I would like us to look at a couple of points. I'll name them quickly and then we can finish our discussion. I want to look at the matter of can't NIDS assist with identifying suspects in violent crimes. I want us to touch on, if we have the time, to look at why is it that the Data Protection Act must be operationalized before a new NIDS becomes law. And in addition, among the many other things, why can't biographic data include a person's ethnicity? I think Mr. Tavares had a challenge with including a number of criteria in terms of biographic data. And I want to also touch on fingerprints before we wrap today. Jumping quickly into it, Ms. Tavares, why is it that you think that the biographic data collected on a person ought not to include ethnicity, as it would, for example, I'm assuming, include whether you're male or female? And also, interestingly, in terms of the fingerprint, is it that the NIDS, if it were to be passed into law, the current bill, is it that it would allow for the taking of a fingerprint? And if it does, is it something that you agree with? Why not remain with the current regime where only a judge in a criminal matter for certain cases can take a fingerprint? Mr. Tavares, starting with you.
Right. So we made a submission on clause 11(1)(a) of the current bill. We suggested that it be amended to provide that biographic information shall never include race, religion, tribe, ethnicity, language, records of entitlement, income, or medical history. This is in keeping with the data minimization principle that data that's collected remain restricted to the stated purpose, right?
Why not race and ethnicity?
Extra information not be collected. This is to
Why
facilitate.
not race and ethnicity? And forgive us, guests and listeners, we have a little challenge sometimes in terms of the technology, and we're trying not to speak over each other. Why not ethnicity and race, for example, Mr.
It's an
Barr?
issue of discrimination, and law is intended to last for posterity. We look at the experience of Rwanda, of South Africa, the other jurisdictions that have implemented identification systems when race, ethnicity, and other qualifiers like that were included within national identification systems. It holds a possibility for discrimination, unfair prejudice, and or unfair advantage, right?
What about male or
when the
female? If you're
Belgians,
comfortable with it stating the person's sex, whether male or female?
right? So the issue of ethnicity, race, religion, language, records of entitlement, income, and medical history, we submit that goes outside. That's outside
We're
of the
clear on
scope.
that. We're clear
of the
on your
corpus.
reason for that, Mr. Varys. We're speaking
Right.
about, for example, whether you're male or female. That can be included.
That is generally included in basic identification documents that we have currently, right? That doesn't appear to be outside of the data minimization principle.
Okay. In
Male or
terms of
female.
fingerprint, under a new NID, based on the current bill that is being looked at by the Joint Select Committee, would it allow for the system to collect a person's fingerprint?
Yes, it would.
Yes.
Do you agree with that as a Love March movement?
Our primary concern had to do with the storage of this information at clause 11(1)(b). 2, there was some issues. There was discussion by the government on its NIDS facts website that there was no need to keep any biometric data online for the NIDS to work. However, this isn't actually in the bill, and also some clarity as to whether if it is that the fingerprint will actually be stored on the card, shouldn't the card then be the private property of the holder of the card and not government property as it is currently worded in the bill, right? So the NIC
You would like
card
it to
is
remain
not
the
the
private
person's,
property of the holder of the card?
right? It's currently not.
I see. I want to quickly ask Mr. Edwards if he has any comments in relation to the storage of such data, such information, such as the fingerprint. Any concerns or questions you want to raise, Mr. Edwards?
The storage can always be protected. Data can be encrypted using one-way encryption, so that once it is captured, it becomes a case of you just validating the data. So the data can be stored outside the system, etc. But that is not the concerns that I'm getting. It's more too much data is being required to facilitate the system.
I see what you mean. Mr. Varys, is it that you're uncomfortable with the taking of the fingerprints as a concept? Would you prefer that the existing regime remain where only a judge in a criminal case, only in certain criminal cases actually, can the fingerprint be taken when a person may, for example, be brought before the court? Is that what you'd like that system that we have now to remain?
Our submissions were made clear. We had an issue with the centralized storage of information. Presently, fingerprints are taken under the electoral ID system and PICA, but these are held in silos, right? It's a bit different than this current bill proposes. It's a bit different, yes, and
what do you mean by
it would require additional safety mechanisms, additional restrictions, right? And which is why we made these submissions on privacy concerns. And I'd just like to repeat that the need for if this information is collected, for it to be stored offline, not online. This is currently not in the bill.
Offline, not
And
online. It's
also,
access to online. Okay.
also the cards remain the property of the individual, and not the authority. And also for risk mitigation procedures to be put in place, having regard to the loss or theft of this piece of identification. So there are several concerns that bleed out when it comes to centralized storage, right? So it's different from the electoral ID or PICA. It's different. It's a different regime altogether.
Okay, understood. Dr. Daniel Thomas, sir. Dr. Thomas?
Yes, totally.
Okay. Now, you were asked something by the Joint Select Committee, the relevant Joint Select Committee member. No, I believe it was the Attorney General herself. Now, following up on that, if I can't NIDS assist with identifying suspects in violent crimes, for example?
Right, as you mentioned, the Attorney General, Malahoo Ford, she asked me that question, and my response remains that if the government plans to use NIDS as a crime-fighting tool, it must first demonstrate that NIDS has that ability. Okay, we cannot just approach things saying that maybe we can use it for this, maybe we can use it for that. We actually need to proceed on an evidence-based platform.
And you haven't seen that evidence?
There's no evidence globally to support that NIDS can actually fight crime or help in crime fighting, so they need to provide the evidence.
Okay, so where do we go from here in terms of the addressing of your concerns in relation to the passage of such a law? Because such a law is likely to be passed at some point, whether in the current form, in the bill in its current form, or some modified version, or maybe even a version that you're touting, Mr. Varys, in terms of the UK model. Something is likely to be passed. So any final comments? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Edwards, and then Dr. Thomas, and rather Mr. Varys and then Dr. Thomas. Starting with you, Mr. Edwards.
Yes, we need systems of this type, but as is the case, you need to say what is the real potential of the system, and there are many potential uses of this type of system, from crime fighting to anything such as identifying when somebody dies, right? Okay. But at the end of the day, are we going to be exposing or introducing more risk by using systems of this nature? And we have to take into consideration all the positives and negatives and adjust, as is the case now, where this 20.
I'll move on to Mr. Varys because we're running out of time. If you could pause there, Mr. Edwards. Mr. Varys, a second or two.
Sure. We submitted that design tweaking is insufficient because the NIDS legislation appears to be conceptually flawed. That the government should be at pains to regain the trust of its citizens, and this act would deepen this trust. And therefore, questions need to be asked.
Have to hold it there, Mr. Varys. Dr. Thomas, a comment?
Right. So our contention is from an even more conceptual level. Is the NIDS actually necessary? We do not think the government has really provided the information, the evidence that our current identifications systems cannot just be modified. Why do we need to take on all this money? Why do we need to do this? And it will not even impact crime. There are a number of issues, general and specific, and we highlighted those. We encourage people to check out our full presentation on PPZJ on TV as well as on the website.
I want to thank Dr. Daniel Thomas, Francesca Tavares, and Mr. Tyrone Ellis for being with us this morning. Very fulsome discussion. Thank you, all listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow to look at other topical and controversial issues. To get copies of the program, call our production department at 876-968-95967. And of course, download our Love 101 app. We are the family station. Thanks to Kathy Gale, our producer, and to our guests. I am Stokely Marshall, handing it back up in the morning with Siobhan Blair.
And the Morning Watch is brought to you today by Educom Cooperative Credit Union. Value through service, integrity, innovation, and commitment. It is now 8 o'clock on the family station, Love 101, and it's time for the program Forward.